there's definitely signs that we're at a very precarious moment right now, right? The government of Canada is now calling these emergency powers, and you know that once the government goes with emergency powers, it doesn't give those powers away quite easily. So Jordan Peterson, who of course is from Canada, okay? Jordan Peterson was a professor at the University of Toronto for many, many years. He was born in Western Canada. I mean, he's a true son of Canada, and then became the most influential, public intellectual on the globe. He gave a little video, did about a 3-minute video right before Trudeau announced the emergency powers. And he talked about this precarious moment we're in because, when you start getting somewhere, right, as the truckers did, they did it right, they started getting somewhere. So some of the restrictions were being pulled back. Well, then some people start walking away. Maybe the radicals double down, the government reaction, et cetera, et cetera. So Jordan put out sort of a basic warning for where we're at the moment. And again, I just want to reiterate, this was done a few hours before Trudeau came out with his emergency powers speech.
I've been asked to say a few words to the truckers in Ottawa. And so I've given that some careful consideration. All you protesters, you've accomplished an awful lot already. The Conservative leadership has crumbled, and Aaron O'Toole has been replaced by someone who is giving a fair bit of voice to your concerns. You now have a voice in the House of Commons. All the people you represent have a voice in the House of Commons. You have 4 provinces that have moved quite precipitously in the direction that the protest was hoping for, starting to lift mask mandates on something approximating as reasonable a timeline as might be expected under the circumstances. I'd like to commend all of you for your diligence and work on accomplishing what you have accomplished under trying conditions, and also for keeping your heads in a way that's actually been a model for the entire world. The fact that you've been able to remain peaceful, you haven't taken the bait, you haven't responded with violence to quite remarkable denigration and provocation, that's a sign of tremendous discipline and care. It's going to get more difficult to maintain as this goes along. So I hope that you're all in this position to allow a sufficient victory to be sufficient, to move forward without rancor, to be grateful for the effect that you've already had and the support that you've received, and to move forward to a normative peace and the reestablishment of our country's economy and our psychological and social well-being. So that's pretty much all I have to say at this point. Thank you.
I mean, first off, there's just nobody better. Careful with his words, sober, optimistic, realistic, clear, all of the stuff. Jordan, if you're watching today, I am truly honored to call you a friend and someone that let me join the ride for 1.5 years when we toured together. I wanted to bring up one specific point that he brought there. And again, this was before Justin Trudeau ramped this all up. He said it's going to get more difficult. You have to allow for a sufficient victory. And that's what was happening until Trudeau ramped everything up, right? There were premiers in Alberta and some of the other provinces who were saying, we played the videos on the show here, you saw it over the last couple of days, that were saying, we're going to scale back on some of this stuff. We hear you, we know you're frustrated. They were even saying, we know you guys have done this peacefully and you've protested properly. We're going to, reverse course on some of this crazy lockdown stuff and the mandate stuff. So they were getting their victory. And then what Jordan was saying to them was, now that you've gotten some measure of victory, you have to be careful. Because, some of you, the say more marginal people involved are going to go away, but the people who really believe in the cause, they're going to continue in essence. That's where things can get, radicalized, et cetera, et cetera. So there was a really interesting moment there. And that is an important piece of this, right? Regardless of what side you're on, it's like when you get some victories, you have to know you got a victory and you have to be gracious for that. So I think that was happening. It's actually, that's not that I think it was happening. It was happening. We know they were getting victories. And then the question was, well, how do you take that victory and move forward? Now, the problem is that just as some victories were happening, just as, say, a true healing was on the horizon, like, oh, we protested properly in a Western democracy, the government heard us, and they're going to scale back on the stuff that we're protesting, then Trudeau just stepped in it, because about 2 hours after Jordan posted that video, Trudeau says he needs emergency powers.
The federal government has invoked the Emergencies Act to supplement provincial and territorial capacity to address the blockades and occupations.
And he's going to arrest protesters, and they are going to find people out on the streets, and they are going to come after your bank accounts, and they're going to go after the crowdfunders, et cetera, et cetera. So now Trudeau is the one who just poured gasoline on the fire. So I will actually I'll text Jordan right after this and see if maybe he'll put one of those messages up directly to Justin Trudeau and stare directly in the camera and say, Justin Trudeau, well, you almost had victory to some degree. Not victory for Justin Trudeau because he wants ultimate power. That's what sits beneath these people. But Justin Trudeau had an off-ramp. There really was a way that we weren't going to be in the situation we were in today. That's what Jordan was laying out there. Like, take your victory, like sit with it for a little while, guys. I got something and it was good. And let's go home for a little bit, or let's keep the pressure on, but like, let's acknowledge that there was a chance. That was Justin Trudeau's off-ramp. They were giving it to him, the other premiers, by saying we're going to scale back some of this stuff. But then he just went all in. And that's what they do with everything. That's what the left and progressives and whatever remains of the liberal structure that has been decimated over the last decade or whatever it is, they double down on everything. And that was always the danger. I mean, watch my videos literally, guys, from 6 years ago. Why was I screaming about all of this as someone on the left when I was a Bernie supporter saying we can't call everybody racist? We can't call them all bigots and homophobes and transphobes and all of those things, because once you do that, they're the ultimate enemy. They're the ultimate evil. And you never have to look in the mirror. And that's what Trudeau has gone with. How can Trudeau possibly put an olive branch out to the homophobes and the racists and the bigots? I guess he could do it while he's in blackface. If he has any sense of irony, that might be one way to do it.